I've always been a straight shooter. When I discovered my firefighter boyfriend's phone, filled with flirty messages to some girl I'd never heard of, I walked right up to Nathan and handed him his phone, demanding an explanation. After a long silence, he confessed. The girl with depression that I rescued on a call. I'll admit I had feelings for her. But Summer, we've been together since high school. That's not easy to throw away. I promise I'll keep my distance from her from now on. Looking at the sincerity in Nathan's eyes, I swallowed my heartbreak and chose to forgive him. The wedding would go on as planned. But on our wedding day, his teammates suddenly burst into the venue. Captain Evening found out about your wedding. She's threatening to jump off a building. The suspended diamond ring dropped to the floor with a sharp clink. Nathan bolted toward the door like lightning. I screamed after him, my eyes red. Nathan, if you walk out that door today, we're done forever. He hesitated for just a moment, then left without looking back. He broke his promise. After all, the wedding venue erupted into chaos. Best whispers pierced my eardrums like thousands of tiny needles. Both sets of parents rushed over, confused about what had just happened. Nathan's teammate, Josh, stood there helplessly, his face bright red. Summer Evening has clinical depression. Last time she tried to jump, the captain saved her. She's completely dependent on him. Only he can talk her down. It's a matter of life and death. The captain had no choice. Please don't blame him. Josh had worked with Nathan for 3 years. He'd always been respectful to me, calling me by name with a warm smile. But now he couldn't even meet my eyes. I didn't know how many of Nathan's secrets he'd kept, or what his connection was to this evening girl. Pain spread through my chest like cracks and ice. The first time I truly felt Nathan's betrayal. My parents held my hands, panicking. What's going on? Isn't he on wedding leave? Who needs him to rescue them right now? Nathan's parents called him frantically, apologizing profusely. Summer, honey, don't worry. I'm calling that boy right now. If he doesn't come back, I'll break his legs myself. The diamond ring lay on the red carpet, kicked further away by passing feet. Just like my shattered heart, I stood there in my wedding gown, the train dragging on the floor like a cloud beaten down by rain. All those countless fantasies about my wedding day. I never imagined it could be this humiliating. The groom abandoning his bride in a hall full of wedding guests. For another woman. 5 hours. 108 calls. Nathan didn't answer a single one. I watched my phone screen go dark. Light up. Go dark again. Until finally the battery died completely. Sunlight streamed through the church's stained glass, casting fractured colors on the floor, falling across my empty ring. Finger guests gradually left, leaving behind scattered confetti and half-eaten reception food. I suddenly felt dizzy. Everything spun. The last thing I heard was my mother's panicked crying. When I opened my eyes again, the smell of disinfectant filled my nostrils. A nurse was changing my foredrip. Seeing me awake, she said gently, "You're carrying a life now. You can't let yourself get this upset. You need to take care of yourself." I stared at the ceiling as tears silently rolled down into my hair. From age 17, accepting Nathan's love letter on the high school field to college, when he took a 20-hour train ride just to surprise me for the weekend, to the day he became a firefighter, his eyes red as he promised, "I'll protect the people, and I'll always protect you." 7 years flashed through my mind like a movie on fast forward. I smiled bitterly looking at my parents and Nathan's parents, their faces unable to hide their excitement about the pregnancy. Tears welled up in my eyes. How could I explain that? This 7-year relationship finally reached its end? At 7 that evening, Nathan finally appeared after vanishing for 6 hours. His face was pale, his eyes filled with guilt. "Summer, I'm sorry." His voice was hoarse. "Evening, I couldn't let her die. Saving lives is what I do." I swallowed the bitterness in my throat. "There are dozens of firefighters. It'd have to be you. She chose our wedding day to jump. She demanded you specifically come save her. What do you think that means, Nathan?" "I'm not an idiot." After a long silence, he gripped my cold hands, his voice rough. "Summer, in 7 years, I've never asked you for anything. Just this once. Please don't make a big deal out of this. Give Evening a hard time. I'm worried about her condition. She can't handle that kind of stress." I looked at the earnestness in his eyes. My heart felt like it was being crushed in someone's fist so tight. I couldn't breathe. He shouldn't be asking me for favors. He should be apologizing. A person's first instinct doesn't lie. He hadn't thought about how humiliated I must have been. At that wedding, he hadn't worried about why I ended up in the hospital. All he could think about was Evening. Tears fell like broken pearls, landing on the white sheets and spreading into dark, vet circles. It took all my strength to squeeze out one word, "Fine." He visibly relaxed, then said, "Evening's really unstable. Knowing about our wedding, Let's postpone it for now. I'll help her get treatment for a while. Once she's a bit better, maybe 3 months? Just 3 months. Then we'll have the wedding. Okay? Nathan's voice carried careful, tentative hope. I'd waited 7 years. 3 more months shouldn't matter. But looking at the concern for another woman in his eyes, I suddenly realized I couldn't afford to wait even 3 months. The baby in my belly seemed to sense my emotions and moved slightly. I touched my abdomen where a 6-week-old life was growing hours, yet somehow no longer having anything to do with him. Slowly pulled my hand back, my voice flat as a dead lake. Nathan, I'm not good at remembering things, but I remember when you gave me that love letter at 17. You were so nervous you walked with both legs on the same side. I remember the first time you held my hand. Your palm was so sweaty, but you wouldn't let go for 3 whole blocks. I remember graduation day. You hugged me and said you'd take care of me forever. You said you'd make me the happiest bride all these years. You remembered I don't eat onions or ginger. You remembered to make me ginger tea during my period. You remembered every little habit of mine. I always thought you cherished me more than anything. Looked up at him, tears suddenly breaking free. But today I don't feel your love anymore. 7 years of memories crashed over me. Nathan's eyes reddened too. His throat bobbed as a tear rolled down. But summer evening needs me right now. One sentence, needs me, shattered my last shred of hope. I looked at him and suddenly laughed through my tears and go to her. He seemed stunned, as if he hadn't expected me to say that. But in the end, he said nothing. He turned and left the hospital room. The next day, I packed my things to check out. Just as I turned the corridor corner, I ran into Nathan. His eyes weren't on me at all. Every ounce of his attention was on the girl beside him. She wore a hospital gown, her face pale, half carried by him like a frightened deer. So, this was the woman he'd abandoned me at the altar. For my gaze must have been too intense. Evening noticed me first, instinctively shrinking behind Nathan, her fingers clutching his sleeve tightly. Only then did Nathan turn to look at me. His brow furrowed immediately, his tone impatient. Summer evenings, emotionally fragile. Whatever you want to say, let's talk at home. Don't make a scene at the hospital and scare her. Evening timidly poked her head out, her voice barely a whisper. Summer, Nathan and I really aren't. Please don't misunderstand. I squeezed the ultrasound report in my hand until my knuckles turned white, but forced a thin smile. You're overthinking it. I'm just here to check out. I turned toward the billing office without another glance at them. Nathan's expression flickered with something strange, as if surprised by my calm. His heart felt oddly hollow. He reached out to stop me. I instinctively looked back and noticed a stain on my trench coat I hadn't seen before. His eyes followed my movement. Seeing me take off the coat, he removed his jacket to put over my shoulders. I stepped away, he froze, then followed me, trying to take the coat from my hands. Let me have it. You love this coat. I'll get it dry cleaned. I shook my head and tossed the coat directly into a nearby trash can, my voice flat. Throw it out. I don't like things with stains. You know, I'm particular about that. Looking at my cold expression, Nathan's smile stiffened. He knew I wasn't just talking about the coat. I was talking about our relationship. Before he could respond, I'd finished checking out and walked away. Not far from the hospital, my phone buzzed, a text from Nathan. Don't be mad. I got you those Napoleon pastries you mentioned wanting. Remember to pick them up when the delivery arrived at home. I stared at the familiar pink box and suddenly laughed. Whenever he made me angry before, he'd always buy pastries from the shop to apologize. I mechanically took a bite. It used to taste so sweet. Now it was just bitter and hard to swallow. That night Nathan didn't come home. Extracting herself from a 7-year relationship hurt more than I'd imagined. I couldn't sleep until dawn. So I got up and started packing. The matching hoodies in the closet side by side. Photo frames on the bookshelf. The sticky notes on the fridge. Every item carried a memory that cut like a knife. I remember the year we graduated. Nathan had just become a firefighter working around the clock. But on his days off, he'd come find me, his eyes bright as stars. Summer, once I save up enough for a down payment, I'm marrying you. 3 years later, he stood before me with a property deed and a diamond ring, his voice trembling. I did it. I got us a home. I kept my word. The sunlight was especially beautiful that day. I held him and cried for a long time, feeling like the luckiest person in the world. We painted the walls together, assembled furniture together, filled the balcony with sunflowers. My favorite. He said he wanted sunlight to always fill our home. But now this home couldn't hold me anymore. As I sealed the last storage box, sky began to lighten. When the movers arrived to take everything away, both sets of parents showed up at the door. I hadn't told them about Nathan, so they still didn't understand why a couple about to get married was suddenly breaking up. My parents sighed, but didn't put just saying, Come home whenever you want. Nathan's mother grabbed my hand and wouldn't let go. Summer, please give Nathan one more chance. What happened at the wedding? He just made a mistake. I said nothing. Just had the movers continue loading boxes. Just as Nathan's mother was about to wear out, her lips begging, the door opened. Nathan came back, and he brought evening with him. She wore Nathan's jacket, suddenly clutching his arm like a cat who just found its owner. The room went deathly quiet. Everyone's eyes locked on them. Nathan's mother's voice trembled. Nathan, did you betray Summer? Nathan's father shook with rage. Who is this woman? Nathan didn't answer. He just scanned the empty living room, his gaze landing on me. You're moving out? You're moving out? The sheer absurdity of Nathan's question hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. He stood in the doorway of the apartment we had meticulously painted together, looking completely bewildered. His eyes darted from the stacked cardboard boxes to the bare walls, finally landing on me. But my eyes weren't on him. They were on Evening. She was drowning in his oversized denim jacket, the same jacket he used to drape over my shoulders during late-night movie runs. Her pale hands gripped the sleeve tightly, her knuckles white, as she shrank behind him. She looked like a frightened bird, but the way her chin tilted up just a fraction when she looked at me betrayed a quiet, territorial defiance. Before I could speak, a sharp, resounding crack echoed through the empty living room. Nathan's head snapped to the side. His mother stood before him, her hand trembling violently in the air, chest heaving. Mom, Nathan started, touching his reddening cheek in shock. Shut up, his mother shrieked, her voice cracking with raw hysteria. You leave your bride at the altar. You disappear. And now you bring her here? To the home Summer built with you? Are you out of your damn mind, Nathan? Nathan's jaw tightened. Mom, you don't understand. Her landlord terminated her lease. She had a severe panic attack this morning. I couldn't just leave her on the street. So, you brought her to my home? I asked. My voice was eerily calm. It surprised even me. The dead lake in my chest hadn't rippled. It had frozen solid. Nathan stepped forward, instinctually trying to close the distance between us, but Evening's grip on his arm pulled him back. He looked down at her hand, then back up at me, panic finally bleeding into his features. Summer, it's just for a few days. Just until I can find her a new place. I swear. You don't have to leave. Please put the boxes down. I looked at him as if he were a stranger. In many ways, he was. The boy who had walked with a nervous, stiff-legged gait to hand me a love letter at 17 was dead. The man standing before me was a hollow replica, wearing a hero's uniform but entirely devoid of a spine. Nathan, I said, picking up my purse. I'm not leaving because she's moving in. I'm leaving because we are done. Summer, please, Evening whimpered, stepping out from behind him. Tears welled up in her large, hollow eyes. I didn't mean to ruin your wedding. I was in a dark place. Nathan is the only one who can anchor me. I'll sleep on the couch. I won't get in your way. Please don't fight because of me. Evening, stop. You're exhausted, Nathan said softly, wrapping a protective arm around her shoulders. My father let out a dark, humorless laugh. He stepped forward, grabbing the last heavy box of my belongings. You listen to me, boy, my dad said, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. If you ever come near my daughter again, your job will be the least of the things I destroy. Do you understand me? Dad, please. I touched my father's arm. Don't waste your breath. I walked over to the kitchen island, pulling the spare house key off my keychain. The metal clinked against the marble countertop. The rent is paid through the end of the month, I said, looking right through Nathan. The movers have taken everything that belongs to me. You and your patient can have the rest. Summer, stop. You can't just throw 7 years away like this. Nathan yelled, finally prying himself away from Evening. He grabbed my wrist. His skin was warm, but his touch made my stomach turn. I looked down at his hand, then up into his desperate eyes. I didn't throw it away, Nathan. You dropped it, right there on the church floor. I yanked my hand free. My mother wrapped her arm tightly around my waist, glaring daggers at Nathan, and guided me out the door. As I walked down the hallway, Nathan's father blocked his son from following us. Don't, his father barked. You've done enough. You disgust me. The elevator doors closed, severing my view of Nathan's panicked face. The metal door shut with a definitive thud, and as the elevator descended, I placed a protective hand over my flat stomach. The first tear fell, silent and cold. The first month without Nathan was a brutal exercise in phantom pain. It was the instinct to reach for my phone when I saw a funny meme. It was waking up at 3 a.m. to the sound of a siren in the distance, my heart dropping as I wondered if he was safe, before reality crashed down on me. I had moved back into my childhood bedroom, surrounded by the ghosts of my teenage years, gestating a life that would never know the family I had planned for it. Nathan did not give up easily. He called incessantly from new numbers. He showed up at my office building, standing in the rain, looking like a drowned puppy. I never went down. I had security escort him off the premises. I changed my number. I changed my routine. I threw myself into my work at the design firm, channeling my grief into late nights and early mornings. But the physical toll of the pregnancy soon made it impossible to hide. The morning sickness was violent. By week 10, I was spending half my mornings crouched over the bathroom tile. My mother was a pillar of iron. She cooked ginger soup, brushed my hair, and managed the onslaught of apologies from Nathan's parents. His parents came over twice a week, bringing organic fruits, prenatal vitamins, and tearful apologies. "He doesn't know about the baby, Summer," Nathan's mother said one afternoon, setting a basket of green apples on the table. She looked exhausted, aged 10 years by the stress of her son's mistakes. "I haven't told him, just like you asked. We barely speak to him, anyway. That girl is completely draining him." I sipped my hot water, looking out the window at the dying autumn leaves. "How is he?" I asked. I hated myself for asking, but 7 years of habit dies hard. His mother scoffed bitterly. "He's drowning, but he's too stubborn to admit it. Evening requires his constant attention. If he goes to work, she calls the firehouse claiming she's having palpitations. If he tries to visit his father, she threatens to harm herself. He thought he was playing the hero. Now he's a hostage." I felt a brief, dark flicker of vindication, but it was quickly extinguished by pity. That was his choice. I just need to know. He won't find out about the baby. Not until I'm ready. "My lips are sealed," she promised, her eyes drifting to my slight bump. "But Summer, a child needs a father. When the time comes, what will you do?" "I'll be its mother and its father," I said firmly. "I will not have my child used as a bargaining chip, and I will not let a woman who uses suicide as a manipulation tactic anywhere near my baby." Winter arrived, coating the city in a thick layer of frost. I was 4 months pregnant now, the small curve of my belly a comforting weight beneath my thick sweaters. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I ran into Josh, Nathan's teammate. I was at a cafe near the hospital, waiting for my latest ultrasound appointment, when I heard my name. "Summer?" I turned to see Josh standing there in his dark blue department uniform. He looked thinner, the dark circles under his eyes prominent. When his eyes dropped to my stomach, his jaw actually went slack. "Summer, you're..." He stammered, pulling off his beanie. "I am," I said calmly. "It's good to see you, Josh. Sit." He sat across from me, looking as though he'd just seen a ghost. "Does he know?" "No. And I expect you to keep it that way." Josh rubbed his face with rough, calloused hands. "God. Summer, I am so sorry. About the wedding. About everything. If I had known what the captain was walking away from..." "You thought it was a matter of life and death," I said, stirring my decaf tea. "I don't blame you, Josh. But tell me the truth. What's going on at the station?" Josh let out a bitter laugh. "It's a nightmare. Evening shows up almost every day. She brings us baked goods, acts like the station wife. The guys hate it. She's suffocating him, Summer. He's been written up twice for missing drills because he was on the phone talking her off some imaginary ledge. Why doesn't he get her professional help?" "He tried. He tried to put her in an inpatient facility last month," Josh said, leaning in closer. "She swallowed a bottle of sleeping pills the night before she was supposed to go. Claimed the thought of being away from him broke her. They pumped her stomach. Now he's terrified to leave her alone for more than 10 minutes. He looks like a walking corpse." I looked down at my tea. The savior complex. Nathan had always wanted to be a hero, but he hadn't realized that true victims want to be saved so they can live. Manipulators want to be saved so they can own you. "He asked about you," Josh said quietly. "Every shift. He asks if anyone has seen you. He still wears his engagement ring on a chain around his neck." My hand instinctively hovered over my empty ring finger. "Tell him you didn't see me, Josh. Please." Josh looked at my belly again, a profound sadness in his eyes. "I promise, Summer. You take care of yourself." I went to my appointment. The baby was healthy. A little girl. When I heard her strong, rapid heartbeat filling the ultrasound room, the last lingering fragments of my shattered heart glued themselves back together. I didn't need a hero. I was going to be one for her. The truth, no matter how deeply buried, always finds the light. It happened in my 6th month. I was visibly pregnant, navigating the world with a waddling grace, finalizing the nursery at my parents' house. I had ordered a specific brand of crib, and when the delivery truck arrived, there was a mix-up with the address. The driver had gone to the apartment, my old apartment. I didn't realize it until I got a call from an unknown number. "Hello, Summer." The voice was raspy, hollowed out, and trembling so violently the syllables practically shook. It was Nathan. My blood ran cold. "How did you get this number?" "There's a delivery here." A crib. With your name on the invoice. I could hear his ragged breathing through the receiver. Summer, a crib?
Please. Please tell me.
Are you? I hung up immediately. My hands were shaking. I blocked the number, but my heart was pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. 30 minutes later, my mother's phone rang. It was Nathan's mother. Summer, he knows. He saw the delivery invoice, he called the maternity boutique, he coerced the clerk into confirming the order details. He's coming to your house. He is out of his mind. Let him come, my father said from the doorway, cracking his knuckles. I've been waiting for this. No, Dad, I said, standing up, taking a deep breath to steady my racing pulse. I'll handle him. I stepped out onto the front porch, wrapping a thick wool shawl around my shoulders. The air was biting, snow beginning to fall in delicate, icy flakes. A black truck screeched to a halt at the curb. Nathan practically fell out of the driver's side. I barely recognized him. The handsome, bright-eyed firefighter I had loved for 7 years was gone. His face was gaunt, covered in a ragged beard. His clothes were wrinkled, and he smelled faintly of stale coffee and profound exhaustion. He froze at the bottom of the porch steps. His eyes dropped instantly to the heavy, unmistakable swell of my stomach beneath my coat. His knees literally buckled. He dropped onto the snow-covered concrete, his hands gripping his hair, letting out a sound that I would never forget, a guttural, agonizing sob that seemed to tear its way out of his soul. A baby, he choked out, staring at my stomach as if it were a mirage. Summer, you're pregnant? My baby? My baby, I corrected coldly, not moving an inch. He scrambled up the steps, but stopped when I held up a hand. Don't come any closer, Nathan. 6 months, he wept, doing the math, his tears freezing on his cheeks. You were pregnant at the wedding. You were pregnant when you were in the hospital.
Why didn't you tell me?
My God, Summer, why didn't you tell me? Because you were too busy carrying another woman out of the hospital to notice. I snapped, my voice ringing out like a gunshot in the quiet neighborhood. Because when I was lying in a hospital bed, bleeding and terrified I was miscarrying, you were begging me to make space for evening's feelings. Nathan recoiled as if I had struck him with a bat. He fell to his knees on the wooden porch, reaching out to touch the hem of my coat. I was blind. I was so arrogant. I thought I was the only one who could keep her alive. I ruined everything. Summer, she's suffocating me.
She lied to me.
I caught her flushing her meds. She faked the panic attacks to keep me home. I see it now. I see it all. He looked up at me, his eyes begging for salvation. I kicked her out. Yesterday. I kicked her out and changed the locks. I'm done.
I'm so sorry.
I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Please, Summer. Let me be a father. Let me come home. I looked down at the man who had been my entire world since I was 17. I waited for the spark. I waited for the old love to flare up, for the instinct to comfort him to take over. Nothing came. Just a profound, crushing pity. You can't come home, Nathan, I said softly, because I am no longer your home. Don't say that, he begged, grabbing my boots, pressing his face against my knees. We love each other. 7 years. You're having my child. We belong together. You broke the vow before you even made it, I said, stepping back, forcing him to let go of me. You didn't choose her over me because she was dying, Nathan. You chose her because it made you feel like a god. You liked that she was weak and needed you, whereas I was strong and just loved you. Well, I don't love you anymore. You don't mean that, he sobbed, shaking his head frantically. I do. My lawyer will contact you regarding custody and child support. You'll have a relationship with your daughter if you prove you are stable enough. But you and me? We are dust, Nathan. I turned my back on him and walked inside. I locked the heavy wooden door behind me. I slid down the door until I was sitting on the floor, burying my face in my hands, and I wept. I didn't weep for him. I wept for the 17-year-old girl who had believed in fairy tales. Then, I wiped my eyes, stood up, and never cried for him again. The final months of my pregnancy were a masterclass in establishing boundaries. Nathan's desperation morphed into a terrifying overcompensation. He deposited his entire life savings into my bank account, which I promptly transferred to a trust for the baby. He hired a lawyer, not to fight for custody, but to draft a legally binding document signing over full primary custody to me, granting himself only the visitation rights I deemed appropriate. Evening did not go quietly. When Nathan cut her off completely, her threats escalated. She showed up at his firehouse with a box cutter. It wasn't Josh who told me, it was the local news. The standoff lasted 3 hours. Nathan was the one who talked her down, but this time, he didn't coddle her. He stepped aside and let the police place her under a psychiatric hold. She was institutionalized. The mirage of the tragic, helpless damsel shattered entirely, leaving only a deeply disturbed woman who had preyed on a weak man's vanity. Nathan resigned from the fire department the following week. He couldn't face the judgment of his peers, or perhaps the trauma of what he had allowed to happen finally broke him. He took a job in construction, working grueling manual labor, as if trying to punish his body for the sins of his mind. In April, as the spring blossoms finally broke through the frost, my water broke. The labor was grueling. 14 hours of white-hot agony. My mother held my left hand, my father held my right. "She's crowning," the doctor announced. "Push, Summer." One big push. With a guttural scream that felt like expelling the last remnants of the past year's pain, I pushed. The sound of a newborn's cry pierced the sterile hospital room. It was the most beautiful, ferocious sound I had ever heard. They placed her on my chest, a tiny, squirming, perfect thing with a head full of dark hair. "Lily," I whispered, kissing her damp forehead. "My sweet Lily." An hour later, there was a tentative knock on the hospital room door. My father's jaw tightened, but I gave him a small nod. He opened the door. Nathan stood there, clutching a massive bouquet of sunflowers. He wore a faded flannel shirt, his hands calloused and covered in grease stains, his face deeply lined. He looked terrifyingly nervous. He didn't step past the threshold. He just stood there, looking at the tiny bundle in my arms. Tears instantly pooled in his eyes and spilled over. She's beautiful," he whispered, his voice cracking. "She looks just like you." "She has your nose," I admitted softly. He let out a watery, choked laugh. Can I come closer?" "Just for a minute," I said. He approached the bed as if approaching a holy altar. He didn't ask to hold her, he knew he hadn't earned that yet. He simply reached out a trembling, grease-stained finger. Lily grabbed it with her tiny, perfect hand. Nathan broke down. He dropped into the plastic chair beside the bed and wept silently into his hands, completely overwhelmed by the miracle of his daughter and the devastating reality that he would only ever be a visitor in her life. "I'll provide for her, Summer," he swore quietly, wiping his face. "I'll never miss a payment. I'll be here whenever you say I can. I'll be a good father. I swear on my life." "I know you will," I replied, my voice steady. "Because if you aren't, you won't see her at all." He nodded, accepting the terms of his purgatory. He placed the sunflowers on the bedside table. "I should go. Let you rest." He paused at the door, looking back at me. There was a desperate, lingering hope in his eyes, a silent question of whether this new life could bridge the gap between us. I looked at him, feeling nothing but a profound, peaceful indifference. "Goodbye, Nathan." His shoulders slumped. He finally understood. The fire was entirely burned out. "Goodbye, Summer." 2 years later, the park was bathed in the golden, warm light of a late summer afternoon. I sat on a plaid picnic blanket, sipping an iced coffee, watching a little girl in denim overalls chase a yellow butterfly across the grass. "Mommy, look," Lily shrieked, her dark curls bouncing as she pointed at the sky. "I see it, baby," I called back, smiling so hard my cheeks ached. "Incoming," a voice called out. I looked up just in time to catch a stray frisbee before it hit my coffee. I tossed it back to Mark, an architect for my firm whom I had been dating for the past 6 months. He caught it smoothly, jogging over to drop onto the blanket beside me. "Good catch," Mark laughed, stealing a sip of my coffee. He was different from Nathan in every way. Quiet, steady, observant. He didn't need to be a hero, he just wanted to be a partner. He remembered Lily's favorite snacks, he fixed the squeaky hinges in my apartment without being asked, and he looked at me not as a damsel to be saved, but as an equal to be respected. "I have fast reflexes," I smirked. Across the park, near the entrance gates, a figure stood by a battered pickup truck. It was Nathan. It was his weekend. He came every other Saturday to take Lily to the zoo or the playground. He was punctual, sober, and financially supportive. He had kept his promise to be a good father, but the toll of his regrets was etched permanently into his face. He looked older than his 30 years, burdened by a heavy, invisible weight. He saw Mark sitting beside me. I saw Nathan's posture stiffen, his hands burying themselves deep into his pockets. He watched as Mark laughed at something I said, casually brushing a stray hair behind my ear. Even from 50 yards away, I could feel the agonizing pang of Nathan's heartbreak. He was watching the life he was supposed to have, playing out with someone else. Lily spotted him. "Daddy," she yelled, abandoning the butterfly and running across the grass on her chubby little legs. Nathan knelt down, catching her in a fierce hug, lifting her into the air. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. He looked over Lily's shoulder, meeting my gaze. I gave him a polite, brief nod. Acknowledgement. Nothing more. I turned back to Mark, who was pointing out a cloud shaped like a dinosaur. I leaned my head on Mark's shoulder, feeling the solid, comforting warmth of him. I had survived the shattered glass of a broken altar. I had walked through the ashes of a burned-down future, and I had rebuilt a life that was entirely, beautifully my own. The sun was shining. My daughter was laughing. And my heart, once broken, beat with a fierce, unbreakable rhythm. I was exactly where I was meant to be,